Honorable judges, respected moderator, dear fellow friends and viewers, take my cordial love and salam assalamu alaikum. Welcome today on behalf of Team DLC. This is Ummy Mukarrama and welcome to this debate. The motion for today's debate is reading is more difficult than writing English. Now, as to this proposition, I strongly believe that this is true. Let me first define some important terms in this debate. Well, most of us don't know what exactly reading and writing stand for. By giving the definition of reading and writing, I can directly prove that reading is more difficult than writing English. According to Wikipedia, writing is the process of using symbols like letters of the alphabet, punctuation, and spaces to communicate thoughts and ideas in a readable form. On the contrary, reading is the process of taking in the sense or meaning of letters, symbols, etc., especially by sight or touch. As per educators and researchers, reading is a multifaceted process involving such components as word recognition, orthography. Orthography stands for spelling, alphabetics, phonetics, phonemic awareness, vocabulary comprehension, fluency, as well as motivation. Reading involves understanding symbol in that language as well. Based on my definition, we can see that reading contains much more components than writing English. So, honorable moderator, isn't it crystal clear that reading is more difficult than writing English? Recent statistics say that almost 83% people fear and feel difficult reading English, while they feel at ease in case of writing English. The reason behind it is super obvious that reading is more difficult than writing English. Let's switch on to another logical point. Reading is a much more expressive activity which requires more concentration. In writing, you have more time to think than speaking. Besides, when you read, you have to understand not only the English grammar but also the subject. So it actually stops being only about English language. Reading is harder than in many ways than writing because it's a performance. Writing must be self-contained and there is no body language or vocal emphasis as everything must be in the words themselves. And the thing which makes writing more easier than reading is the ability of revise and recorrect the wrongs. Now let's compare a common thing. We all know that we have 26 alphabets in English, which is mostly used in writing. Now I want to ask my opponent that can you guarantee that these 26 letters are enough for reading English? Obviously no, because we have 44 sounds in English. Some are voiced, some are unvoiced, some are long sounds, again some denote short sounds. So in case of reading, we need to maintain these whole orders to make our reading meaningful. The alphabet we use doesn't have sufficient letters to represent all the spoken sounds in English. Honorable moderator, this makes English reading real difficult. Honorable moderator, in the world there are few countries whose native language is English, but if we look back to our non-native English speakers, we can easily understand why reading English is more difficult than writing English. As for non-English speakers, it is more difficult to understand when they read to each other due to the different accents and mispronunciations. Besides, non-English speakers found difficulties in adapting their enunciation to both major English accents, American and British. Again, reading requires certain pronunciation skills and mental efforts. Vocabulary and grammar is important, but if you don't know how to read them or pronounce the words correctly, people will not understand you and you would fail at communicating. Based on my explanation, honorable moderator, you cannot but accept that reading is more harder than writing English. Hence, if I talk about technology from the technology standpoint, there are more tools to correct people's writing, but there is none to correct their reading. Thus, people must rely on their own skills in case of reading. So, can you imagine how difficult it is for them to read English? I think writing is easiest because you can see how it looks on the paper next to everything else, and you can figure out the spelling to make sure it is perfect. Honorable moderator, now I will talk about the 7 most difficult parts of reading English, which are enough to prove that reading English is more difficult than writing English. 1. Pronunciation. 2. Expression. 3. Exceptions in English. 4. Phrasal and group verbs. 5. Latin letters. 6. Lack of grammatical and linguistic competency. And last but not the least one is lack of proper motivation and consideration. Well, there are tons of reasons why reading is more difficult than writing English. In the conclusion, I want to say that writing is easier because writing can write with your own words, own thoughts and feelings, whatever. But reading, we need to read other opinion, other words. Sometimes we do not even know what the words we are reading. So it's really difficult reading English. And for all these reasons, the motion must stand. Honorable moderator, based on my logical reasons, I beg you to prop. That's all from me, and thanks a lot for your valuable time.
Dear audience, while taking preparation for this very debate competition, I was thinking that I will try to put up my level best in this competition so that I can earn a very good position. And I was trying to do exactly that. And I was being successful to organize all my thoughts in my mind in a very short period of time. But when I went for writing down those thoughts into a piece of paper, all those difficulties started to come up. And I have to say, after facing all these difficulties throughout 3 to 4 hours, that writing English is more difficult than reading English. And let me prove this very statement. Dear audience, when we go for writing down a piece of paragraph or a piece of article, we need to consider at least 4 things. Firstly, the grammar. Now, grammar is the structure of English language. So whatever we write, we have to write that thing by using proper grammatical rules. So this is the very first condition before writing down a piece of writing in English language. Number 2, it is the punctuation. Now, even if we do a single punctuation mistake, there are a lot of chances that the entire meaning of our writing can be changed and misunderstood by the one who is reading it. So obviously, punctuation is a very important factor in case of writing English. Number 3, it is the spelling. Now, if my grammars are correct, if my punctuations are correct, but I am making spelling mistakes every now and then in case of writing, then how can the reader who is reading that piece of writing understand what I am writing actually? And the last thing, last but not the least, it is our handwriting. Now, it doesn't matter if I'm grammatically correct, my punctuations are correct, my spellings are correct, but if I make a total mess up in case of handwriting, then it will not be acceptable by the one who is reading it, and he will not understand what is written in that very piece of paper. So we have to consider these very 4 things in order to write a standard English writing. But when we go for reading that very piece of paper, we do not have to consider a lot of things. Yes, you may ask me these questions that in case of reading, pronunciations and accents, these are very important factors. But let me clarify you one thing, that there is no wrong or right accents, there are different accents. That means if my speaking style or my accent doesn't match with your accent, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are wrong or I am right. Rather, as we are different individuals, we live in different places, we are likely to have different speaking styles. And that is why accents actually do not matter. Yes, if you go for following a different or a particular accent, for example, British accent or American accent, you have to follow the proper rules of those particular accents. But apart from that, there are no such rules that you have to follow a different accent to do good in case of reading anything in English. But see, in case of writing, we have to follow proper rules, because if we do not follow the proper rules in case of grammars, in case of spellings, in case of punctuations, then it will not be understandable for the reader who is reading down that very piece of writing. So obviously, writing English is the more difficult task comparing to reading English. Besides, writing is actually more time consuming. Now, in order to write a paragraph, we have to invest at least 15 to 20 minutes. But see, if we have to read out that very paragraph, we just need 3 to 4 minutes to read out that very piece of paragraph. So even with this very common example, we can prove that writing English is more difficult than reading English. So dear audience, see, in case of writing English, we do have to consider a lot of things. But in case of reading down that very piece of writing in English language, we just have to be audible to our audience, and we just have to use the proper expressions. And if we maintain these 2 particular rules, we are likely to earn the fame that we can read English properly. So I hope that my dear viewers, my dear wise viewers, will agree to me that reading English is not the difficult task. Rather, writing English is more difficult than reading English. With this, I would like to conclude. Thank you, dear audience, for your kind patience.